Alrighty, so today we'll be reading from it's a persistent guy. Okay, today we will be reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, chapter 10, text 41. Before we do that, I'm going to address something that's obvious. There are a lot more senior devotees here than me, like all of our local resident senior devotees and a couple of new senior devotees I haven't seen very much. And, so if I say anything that's just off the wall, just feel free to just, step right in.
Tomatoes.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Step right in and, put me in my place. And also, I spent a few years teaching kids, and the whole questions at the end thing doesn't work with them. So I'm very used to a sort of informal format of, if you disagree, if you agree, if you have a question, just hand goes up, ask, doesn't matter what's going on. Right? So
you mean at any time or just
at any point. At any point. Yeah, you can wait till the end if you want, but otherwise feel free. Okay, so like we just said, chapter 10, text 41. Oh, sorry, chapter 10, text 41. I said it right. Okay. Yad yad vibhuti matsatvam Srimadurjitame bhava Tattareva vagachatva Mama tejam cha sambhava. Drop that down. Yad yad vibhuti matsatvam Srimadurjitame bhava Tattareva vagachatva Mama tejam cha sambhava. Yad yad vibhuti matsatva Srimadurjitame bhava Tattareva vagachatva Mama tejam cha sambhava. Vaishnavas? Yes.
Yad vibhuti matsatvam Srimadurjitame bhava Tattareva vagachatvam Mama tejam cha sambhava.
Can I ask you about the third line? It was tat tat eva, then what?
Vagacha.
Are there two vas? Is it eva va?
Yes, eva va.
One way is short, one eva va. Okay, so there's another va after this va.
Tat tat eva vagacha tvam. Continuing. Vaishnavas?
Yajad Vibetamat Sattavam
Yajad Vibhutimat Sattvam
Shrivam Vijitvam
Srimad Urjitameva
Tatadeva Gachatvam
Tatadeva Gachatvam
Mama Tejam Sasambhavam
Mama Tejam Sasambhavam.
Vaishnavis.
Yajad Vibhutimat Sattvam
Yajad Vibhutimat Sattvam
Srimad Urjitameva
Srimad Urjitameva
Tatadeva Gachatvam
Tatadeva Gachatvam
Mama Tejam Sasambhavam
Mama Tejam Sasambhavam. Go ahead.
Yajad Vibhutimat Sattvam
Yajad Vibhutimat Sattvam
Srimad Urjitameva
Srimad Urjitameva
Tatadeva Gachatvam
Tatadeva Gachatvam
Mama Tejam Sasambhavam
Mama Tejam Sasambhavam.
Yajad Vibhutimat Sattvam
Yajad Vibhutimat Sattvam
Srimad Urjitameva
Srimad Urjitameva
Tatadeva Gachatvam
Tatadeva Gachatvam
Mama Tejam Sasambhavam
Mama Tejam Sasambhavam.
Alright. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. First we'll do the word for word. Yat yat,
Yajad
whatever.
Whatever
Vibhuti, opulences. Mat,
Mat
having.
Having
Sattvam,
Sattvam
existence.
Existence
Shrimat,
Srimad
beautiful.
Beautiful
Urjitam,
Urjitam
glorious.
Glorious
Eva,
Eva
certainly.
Certainly
Va, or.
Or
Tat, tat. All those.
all those
Eva,
Eva
certainly.
Certainly
Avagacha,
Avagacha
must know.
Must know
Twam,
Tvam
you.
You
Mama, my. Tejaha,
Teja
of the splendor.
of the splendor
Sorry, last one. Amsha,
Amsa
apart.
Apart
Sambhavam,
Sambhavam
born of.
Born
Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Know that all opulent, beautiful, and glorious creations spring from but a spark of my splendor. Purport. Any glorious or beautiful existence should be understood to be a fragmental manifestation of Krishna's opulences. Whether it be in the spiritual or material world, anything extraordinarily opulent should be considered to represent Krishna's opulence. That's the whole purport, so I'm going to read it again. The verse, know that all opulent, beautiful, and glorious creations spring from but a spark of my splendor. Purport. Any glorious or beautiful existence should be understood to be but a fragmental manifestation of Krishna's opulence, whether it be in the spiritual or material world. Anything extraordinarily opulent should be considered to represent Krishna's opulence. So, I decided to speak on this verse today before I knew how long the purport was. And then I checked and it was very short. So we're going to make do. This was always one of my favorite verses, and I don't know, I think it's kind of self-evident why. Because it's one of those really optimistic verses in Gita. You know, you get those Dukalayama Shastratam verses as well, where it's the whole material world is a place of suffering and misery, and it's temporary, and, you know. But this is one of those verses that reminds us that everything that we see in the world, everything that has some good, some beauty, some grandeur, some opulence, something, some attractive quality, that is Krishna. It is attractive because Krishna has personally imbued it with some opulence of his. It's just a spark. It's but a spark of his splendor, to use his own words. It's just a spark, but it is him. Right? And that's a silver lining we all need once in a while. And yeah, so this verse, it helps us as devotees, or at least it helps me. Okay, let's jump back here. So, what's going on in 10th chapter? 10th? Yeah, okay, yeah, it was rhetorical, but sure.
Well, he's saying all of these things, like I am the shark, or fish, I'm the shark, and of each amazing thing that there is, I'm the best at that.
Right, that is kind of the major theme of 10th chapter. Of course, a few things happened before that. One of the, yes?
4 nutshell verses.
There's the Chatur Shloki Bhagavad Gita, which are basically the essence of Bhagavad Gita is given in 4 verses, and that is in the 10th chapter. And now, but in between those two things, Arjuna says something. I just remember this because I read it this morning. But Arjuna says something in between when Krishna starts talking about his opulences and after Krishna speaks kind of the essence of Bhagavad Gita. And for me, that was really the crux of this chapter. Not that that's important, but that's what really, that's what touched home for me. Anyone know what I'm talking about? Arjuna said something, rather Arjuna asked something. Or said. Go for it. Anyone?
Well, Krishna is God. He basically stated that Krishna is
Yes,
God.
yeah, he confirmed that. Pram Brahma, Pram Dhamma, Vitram, Paramam Bhavan. Right, that whole sequence of verses, he confirmed it. Right after that, he says something that I really like, so I'm going to read it to you. He said, text 17. Katam vidyamaham yogims tvam sara parichintayam keshu chabhaveshu chintyosi bhagavan maya. O Krishna, O supreme mystic, how shall I constantly think of you, and how shall I know you? In what various forms are you to be remembered, O supreme personality of Godhead? Right? And this is what launches Krishna into what is one of the most memorable parts of the Bhagavad Gita, which is him saying of fish, I am the shark, of luminaries, I am the sun, there's some really cool ones in there, right? Of wise people and wisdom, right? He says that. Of cheaters, I am gambling, right? I'm the gambling of cheats.
Among cheaters.
Oh, among cheaters, I am gambling, right? Yeah, so like just some really intelligent and cool stuff. So that's what launches Krishna into it. And we see from this question what the purpose of this part of Bhagavad Gita is. What the purpose of 10th chapter is. Exactly what, now I missed a couple of his classes, but Sureshwar Prabhu yesterday was talking about this principle of Rupa Goswami talks about this verse, Yena tena prakaranam manat krishnena veshayet. Sarve vidina shedasyor eteyor evikinkara. Yena tena prakaranam means by any means, by hook or by crook, we should get our minds to be absorbed in Krishna. We should become Krishna conscious. Sarve vidina shedasyor eteyor evikinkara. All other rules and regulations are servants of this principle, or should be made servants of this principle. Right? So, this is what Krishna is helping us with here. And for those of us who are engaging in the material, and I speak for myself here, those of us who are engaging in the material world on a regular basis, and yeah, we hold on to our sadhana, and we try and keep some semblance, but oftentimes it's an uphill battle. Right? And if the only times that we're connected to Krishna, that we allow ourselves to be connected to Krishna is when we're chanting those rounds or when we're in the temple room, right? Then that leaves a lot of time open to be harassed by Maya and for life to get tough, right? But Krishna reminds us. He reminds us throughout the 10th chapter that all of those things, whatever it is that's distracting us, the thing that we find, the attractiveness of that, the beauty of that, the glory of whatever that little thing is, You know, it could be the rush of driving down the road at 100 miles an hour. It could be a beautiful sunset. Whatever, you know, whatever is your thing. That's Krishna. Right? And once we have that knowledge, and once we think about that for a little bit, then that can, at the very least, in the very beginning, what that can do is that can be like a little logic thing. You know, A equals B, B equals C, so A equals C. Right? So we see something beautiful or something interesting, something powerful, and then we think of Krishna. Right? Prabhupada gave us an example of that when he spoke about when Calcutta was being bombed during World War II, and he was living in Calcutta at the time. And he said that when the bombs were falling, I was thinking, this is Krishna, but not in a very attractive form. Right? So this is what Prabhupada, so this is the way a pure devotee thinks. So that's one way that we can connect to it. And hopefully, you know, we'll get there, that just everything reminds us of Krishna. But another thing, you know, when we want to think about it and get a little bit more logical with it, if we're attracted by this thing, whatever it is, and we know it's temporary, and oftentimes if we're attracted by, you know, we're chewing the chews, so we've been there before. We know it's not going to make us that happy, but still we want it. So if we're attracted by that thing, whatever it is, it could be a cup of ice cream, it could be a beautiful girl, it could be a fast car, whatever it is. If we're attracted by that, how much more attracted we can be by Krishna. Because this is but a spark of his splendor. This is just like, this isn't this is a passing thought, you know, like he doesn't have to think about this. In Lakshmi Tantra, which for some reason or other I had to study at one point. Lakshmi Tantra, Lakshmi Devi is speaking to Indra, right? So the consort of the Lord is speaking to King of Heaven, kind of a high profile discussion. And what she says is, Krishna says, a spark of my splendor here. She goes into how much of a spark that is. She says that she is running, by the Lord's desire, she is running the material world with 1/billionth of her effort. It's like, I mean, it doesn't say billionth, it says like a tenth of a tenth of a tenth, but it's a billionth when you do the math. So, and the rest is all focused. The rest of all of her energy, and this is just giving us an idea, of course, but the rest of all of her energy is focused on Krishna and serving Krishna and pleasing Krishna and the spiritual world, right? So I don't want to get utopian, because at least for me that doesn't always help. You know, it doesn't always help because depending on the state of our faith at the time, or you know, whatever. It doesn't always help to hear about this perfect place that we might go one day. You know, like, that's just for me. I don't know. But when we're here, right, we've all experienced beauty. We've all experienced something good in the world. And if we know where that comes from, right, then it's not utopian anymore. If we know that feeling, and we know that there could be more of it, because why couldn't there be? Right? There could be more of it. And if we know that all of that feeling, all of that good and that beauty and that splendor is personified into one person, right? That's a very enlivening thought. And that can keep us going. That keeps me going. And I think that can keep all of us going a little bit stronger and a little bit happier in our Krishna consciousness. Because it's the most important principle. Krishna is the primary name of God. That's the understanding that Prabhupada gave us. And it's confirmed in a bunch of Vedic literatures. That Krishna is the primary, most important name of God. And what does Krishna mean? Not rhetorical. What does Krishna mean? The all-attractive, right? It means someone who can attract everyone. In the there's one verse in the Bhagavatam, I don't remember where, but it says, Sanketam parihasya vastobam helam eva vaikuntanam grahanam ashesha gaharam viduhu. It says that whether you are chanting or thinking of Krishna's name, whether you're making fun of it, right? Whether you're saying it as a joke, whether you're saying it disparagingly, insultingly, absent-mindedly, right? It can open the doors to Vaikuntha. Right? And that's a wonderful thing. So Krishna is all attractive. No matter which way we approach him, it's perfect. Right? And yeah. And when you look at it that way, it's not that hard, you know. And then you start and we do it, and then you think of it more, and it becomes sweeter and sweeter and sweeter, like the sugarcane juice, right? Everyone know that example? Does anyone not know the example? If I just say the sugarcane juice, does an example immediately leap to mind?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm going to say it anyway. Rupa Goswami gives the example of when we start practicing devotional service, we're like a man afflicted with jaundice. Now, there's a traditional Indian cure for jaundice. Jaundice it's a really bad fever. I believe it affects your liver. You go all yellow and pasty looking. Yeah, you get a fever, like I said. It's not a pleasant thing. But one of the symptoms of jaundice is sweet things lose their taste. And in fact, they don't just lose their taste, they taste bitter. They have a horrible kind of bitter taste. Anything sweet. And intriguingly, ironically, the traditional cure for this is to eat sugar candy or drink sweet juice, sugarcane juice, or something sweetened with sugar. And the more you do that, and now this isn't like white refined sugar, you know, this is proper made, you know, don't try this with like one of those domino packets of powdered sugar. But, you know, if you have pure healthy sugar, the way that you cure it is that you drink it. And as you're being cured, it's an index for yourself, because when you first start drinking it, it's disgusting. It's nasty. It's super bitter. But as time goes on, it gets less bitter. It gets less bitter. And then you'll kind of reach a point of neutrality, you could say. Where it doesn't bother you anymore. It's not bitter. It doesn't really taste like anything. That's like Brahman, you know, like what everyone is aiming for. That's that. That's just when you're drinking the sugar candy, it doesn't taste like anything. That's not what we want. And then you keep drinking it. You keep drinking it. And it gets sweeter. And it gets sweeter. And it gets sweeter. And eventually, it's super sweet because you've been drinking basically pure sugar for like 2 months. And all of a sudden, it's super sweet. You're happy because you get to taste sweet things again. And you're cured. You're not sick anymore. Right? So this is the process of devotional service. If we can just, yanatena prakarana, if we can hook into Krishna one way or another, and this is a really nice way, is to remember that anything beautiful, anything that has some splendor, some power, any of the 6 opulences, anything that has those things that attracts us, that is Krishna. Right? So by hook or by crook, we're latching our mind to Krishna in some way. And then you just kind of stay there as long as you can. It's like when they tell you, if anyone has ever done any kind of like, any exercises sort of like for building your core muscles or something, they tell you at least 5 seconds. Like do it for 5 seconds and then you can relax. And then when you feel up to it again, do it for 5 seconds again. Right? And then the goal is that then you can hold it for a minute, 10 minutes, right? An hour, depending on how strong you want to get. That's the goal. So it's the same thing here. Right? When we're reminded of Krishna, just try and stay in that mode. Remember that it's Krishna for 2 seconds, 5 seconds. Right? And then, but build at it. Get to the point where everything is reminding us of Krishna, where we're thinking of Krishna. And then get past that little bit of bitterness. And then life will be sweet. Apparently. All right. I'm going to end here. Any questions or comments? Yes?
Yeah, it's like an infinity loop. You know, you look at something and you see, oh, it's a beautiful tree. And if you remind yourself it's an expansion of Lord Krishna, then also the minute you begin to think of Krishna or chant Krishna's name, then more beautiful things appear because you become aware of the beauty of creation. And so it's like a loop, you know, it feeds itself and it becomes, and basically that's why they say chant and be happy.
Yeah.
You start to see more and more beautiful things, and then they remind you more and more of Lord Krishna, and then more beautiful things happen. So it makes like a very nice life.
That's a really nice realization. And there's a funny story that one of the acharyas tell in connection to that. They tell a story that once there was a very rich king and a very benevolent king, and then there was a very poor man. So this poor man sought out the king, and he didn't want anything from the king. He waited in line. king was holding court, he stood in front of the king and he said, "My dear king," and he said, "Yes, I've seen you waiting for so long. You look like a humble, hardworking man. What can I do for you?" And he said, "I don't want anything from you, but my whole life I have heard stories and fairy tales. And what at the end of the treasure or the goal is always golden. Right? It's always a box full of gold, or they end up with a golden dove, or there's something, there's always gold. And I'm a very poor man. I have never seen gold. So, my lord, if you could please show me gold." And the king, his initial kind of reaction was to laugh, but he didn't. He understood this is a poor man and a very sincere man. So instead of just laughing at him or saying, "Are you kidding me? What do you think I'm wearing?" Right? He didn't do any of that. He just said, he very respectfully, he called his treasurer over and he said, "You please take this man to our treasury and show him as much gold as you can." So the man followed. And the treasurer started going. He started following him. First they were walking through the nice ornate palace of the king, and the man was just thinking, "Well, I'm going to see gold. I'm going to see gold." He was very excited. He was looking. He was looking but not seeing, as they say, right? He was just thinking, "I want to see gold. I'm going to see gold." And then they started going, and then he took a torch and they went down into the deep tunnels and started going. And all he could think was, "I'm going to see gold. I'm going to see gold." And finally, they opened the door. There's this vast treasury, and sure enough, it's full of resplendent gold. And he lights a few more torches, and in the firelight, he's seeing the gold, and he's so overwhelmed. He's like, "Oh, this is beautiful." He's so happy. And that, I got to see more gold than, none of my friends are going to believe this. That's his feeling. And there's a moment of overwhelming happiness, and then there's a dawning realization that, there's been gold all along. And he starts looking back, and he starts seeing wealth and riches everywhere. There was gold in the tunnels. There was gold in the hallway. The king was wearing gold. The palace was decked with gold. Heck, one of my friends has a gold ring. Right? So he starts seeing it everywhere. And then he appreciates the value and the beauty of what he's already been through. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. I thought that kind of connected, and it's kind of a cool story. Mama, actually.
That is a cool story. I'm really glad that you read that verse. That's one of my favorite verses too, because like you said, it's so easy to relate everything that you see. Like you say, everything that's beautiful, anything that's great in this world, and it's such an easy one. Like when you're talking to other people that aren't Krishna conscious, that don't know anything about Krishna conscious, and you can explain to them that this is but a spark of the splendor of the Lord. Yeah, this is so wonderful, this is so great, but in reality, it's just a spark.
Yeah, and it's just
it's just the beginning like that, and so it's really such a nice verse to bring people to appreciate Bhagavad Gita and want to know more about Bhagavad Gita, how everything helps you to remember Krishna. And just like you were saying, how Srila Prabhupada had said, even when the bombs were falling, he's thinking, wow, this is Krishna, because it's so powerful. So all those different things that can help us remember that everything in the material world is actually Krishna. So we just have to realize that it is him, but then again, it's not. He's not affected by all the modes of material.
There's that whole kind of interest. There's from 9.4 to 9.7, I think. Krishna says a bunch of super contradictory verses, seemingly, where he's saying, "I'm in everything, but I'm not, and everything's in me, but yet I'm aloof."
Yeah.
But behold my mystic opulence, I'm not in anything, for I, it's like this whole kind of where he's, it's like Acintya Bheda type of. No, thanks for sharing that.
Thank you. I really appreciate the class. Thank you so much.
Always a pleasure. Any further questions? Yes, Mother Ronnie.
Just, I guess when you were talking about how Prabhupada was seeing Krishna in the bombs falling, and believe me, I don't think I'm some kind of exalted character, but I have a little experience of that because my older son Narayan and I stayed here for Katrina, My daughter and my other son left, and a lot of the devotees left actually because I think if I had it to do over again, I would have left. But we were in Lasanitai's house, which is a brick house, and we went to the inner part of it because we could hear the storm coming, and it was like an experience that was, I mean, I can't even hardly describe it. It was so loud, the storm, that we were looking out the windows and trees were crashing in the yard, but you couldn't hear the trees crashing because the storm was so loud. And I got down and I offered obeisances to the storm because that's what I thought. This is just a spark of Krishna's opulence. And I just had at that time just the tiniest realization of what, wow, that's a spark.
Yeah, that's beautiful realization. Thanks for sharing that. Any further questions or comments? Yes, Prabhu.
I've got a question. You talked about curing jaundice with repeated application of cane juice.
Yes.
Has anybody in here actually done that to themselves?
No, but I know someone who did it.
Okay, it does.
It worked.
It does work.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, there's all sorts of really counterintuitive, just sort of village methods. For example, I'll give you another example. Prabhupada says it's in Prabhupada Limrita, you can read this. He said that when he used to get dysentery when he was a kid, his mom would make him fresh hot puris and fresh fried eggplant. Now, you wouldn't immediately think, oh, I have dysentery, I should eat 2 hot fried substances. This isn't what immediately would come to mind, but that's what his mom would cook, and that's what he would eat, and apparently it worked. So, I don't know, I guess we got a lot to learn.
This mother, Nartaka, who was just telling me, was telling me that she had jaundice. And she went to a jaundice walla in India that hit her on the head with some peacock feathers and gave her some things. You want to tell the story, Martha?
No, and there's different jaundice wallas all over India that use different substances, but in Vrindavan, they just take something like some shells and rub it on you, but they say mantras, and then they pour water and all the yellow comes out.
Wow.
You can see the water turns yellow,
That's
It
far
pulls
out.
out all the jaundice from you, And you drink something that has like cow urine and different herbs in it, and you get better, But then if you tell the allopathic doctor that, this person is available, they say, oh, we do not believe in this,
Yeah, I mean, and fair enough. I mean, I believe you, but yeah, there's a lot of far outs.
Quackery.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of quackery. Anyone who's spent some time in India has experience with that, but there are some gems there are some diamonds in the rough. Okay, if there are no further questions or comments, we will end here. Jai Bhagavad Gita ki Jai, Shri Prabhupada ki Jai, Jai Prabhupada.